A man in a dusty white robe walks at the edge of a narrow canyon in southern Jordan. He is 27 years old. Beside him, a local guide carries a skin of water. The morning sun has not yet reached the canyon floor. He has been preparing for this morning for 9 years. This is the story of the city he is about to see. The city is called Petra. In its own language, the language of the people who built it, the name was Raqēmō. It sits in a basin of red sandstone between two ridges in what is today the south of Jordan. For roughly 1,000 years, it was a working city. Caravans of camels carried frankincense and myrrh and silk and Indian pepper through it on their way from the Arabian deserts to the ports of the Mediterranean. The Nabataeans, the Arab tribe who built it, cut their tombs and temples directly into the rock walls of the valley. The rock is sandstone, the color of dried roses. The city had 20,000 people at its height. It had aqueducts and cisterns and a paved central avenue. It had embassies in Rome and Alexandria. It had a king named Aretas the Fourth, whose reign lasted 48 years and who built a mausoleum the size of a small palace at the end of a narrow canyon so that visitors entering would see it before they saw anything else. In the evening of the 19th of May, in the year 363, the ground shook for less than a minute. When it stopped, half of the standing buildings had fallen. The aqueducts cracked. The cisterns were no longer reliable. The city did not die that night. It went on, smaller, for 3 more centuries, and then slowly, over several generations, it disappeared from the memory of the Western world for almost 500 years. The people who lived near it never forgot it. The shepherds who passed it every spring did not forget it. Arab geographers in the 13th century knew it was there, but to the libraries and universities of Europe, after about the year 1200, the city ceased to exist. How does a city of 20,000 people disappear? Why does it stay invisible for 5 centuries to one half of the world, while remaining visible to the other? And what kind of person finds it again, and at what cost? The man in the white robe at the edge of the canyon will see Petra in about 4 hours. He will spend most of his day inside it. He will leave before sunset. He will keep going. 5 years later, in a small room in Cairo, he will be dying. He will not know whether what he saw will survive him. A shepherd is coming down a narrow terrace on the western side of a hidden valley. He is 12 years old. The sun is low behind him. The wall of the opposite cliff is turning the color of a pomegranate split open. He keeps one hand on the rope around the neck of the lead goat. The other hand he uses to steady himself against the rock. The rock is warm. It has been warm all afternoon. Now it is starting to cool, and the cooling has a smell, dry and faintly mineral, like the inside of a clay jar. His name is not preserved. His people are. They are Edomites. They have lived in this region for at least 400 years. He is descending from the top of a flat mountain that towers over the valley from the west. The Arabs who come later will call it el-Biara, which means the mother of cisterns, because the top of it holds rainwater in carved hollows. There is a town on top of this mountain. It is small. It is fortified. From up there, the boy can see for 50 kilometers in every direction. He can see where caravans come from and where they go. He can also see the spring at the bottom of the valley, which is the reason anyone lives here at all. The spring is fed by snowmelt in winter. In summer, it runs from a fissure in the rock under what will later be called Wadi Musa, the Valley of Moses. It produces water all year, not a great deal of water, enough to keep a few hundred people alive and to water their goats and their barley. The boy reaches the bottom of the terrace. He counts the goats. They are all there. He drinks once from the spring, briefly, on his knees. The water is cold. He does not know that 600 years from now, the people who replace his people in this valley will carve the entire face of the cliff he is looking at into a city of tombs and temples and a paved road wide enough for 2 chariots. He stands up. He starts the goats toward the pens for the night. The cliffs above him are now dark red. The valley fills with shadow. A man in his 40s is sitting on a rock at the edge of a caravan camp, drawing in the sand with his finger. The drawing is a curved line and 3 smaller lines that branch off from it. The curve is the canyon. The 3 branches are channels he wants to cut into the rock walls to carry water. He is a merchant. He has come through this valley twice a year for 15 years. Tonight, he is going to propose to the other heads of caravans that they stop moving. It is sometime in the 4th century before the Common Era. The exact year is not preserved. The decision is. His people are Nabataeans. They are an Arab tribe from the northern interior of the Arabian Peninsula. They speak a form of Aramaic mixed with Arabic, which they have started to write down in a script of their own. The first Greek historian to write about them, Diodorus Siculus, will describe them about 40 years from now as those who do not sow, who do not plant, who do not build houses. Diodorus will be wrong by then. They will already have started to build. The man at the rock is one of the reasons. He has noticed that the spring at the bottom of this valley runs all year. He has noticed that the canyon at the entrance is narrow enough to defend with 20 men. He has noticed that anyone moving frankincense from the south of Arabia toward Damascus or Gaza has to pass within a day of this place. He has noticed that the rock of the valley walls is soft. It can be cut with a copper chisel. A house in this rock would not have a roof to repair or a wall to rebuild after a storm. The name they will give the city is Raqēmō. It will appear in their inscriptions as Rqmw or Rqm. The Greeks who arrive later will translate the name, because Greeks translate everything, and they will call it Petra, which simply means the rock. The man finishes his drawing. He smooths the sand over it with his palm. He stands up. In 4 generations, 20,000 people will live in this valley. None of them will sleep in a tent. A man is kneeling against the wall of a narrow canyon at midday. He has a brass level in his left hand. He has a wooden measuring rod in his right. He is checking the angle of a small stone channel that 2 workers are cutting into the cliff face above him. The channel is the width of a forearm. It will carry water along the canyon wall for 1 kilometer and 200 meters. The angle has to be perfect. If it slopes too sharply, the water will rush and break the lip. If it does not slope enough, the water will sit and breed mosquitoes. He has been adjusting the angle for 3 days. It is the 1st century before the Common Era. The canyon is the entrance to Petra. Today it is called the Sick. He does not know that word. To him, it is simply the way in. The walls rise to 80 meters above him. The width at this point is about 6 meters. At its narrowest, further in, it is 3 meters. The sandstone is layered in rose and ochre and pale rust, with veins of darker red running through it like watermarks in old paper. The sun reaches the floor of the canyon for 2 hours a day, around noon. He works in those 2 hours. What he is building is part of the most sophisticated water network in the ancient Near East outside of Rome. Aqueducts run underground from springs in the mountains to the east. The water arrives at the entrance to the Sick and is divided into 2 channels, one along each wall. Inside the city, the channels feed cisterns, fountains, baths, and a central pool the size of a small lake with a paved island in the middle. Petra has, by his lifetime, around 20,000 people. The valley itself produces almost nothing. The wealth comes from the caravans. The survival comes from him and the men like him who know how to make water stay where it is needed in a place where water does not want to stay. He stands up. He hands the level to his apprentice. The apprentice is 14. He nods. He kneels. An old man is standing on a high terrace at sunrise, watching workers on hanging platforms cut letters into a wall of pink rock at the far end of the canyon below him. He is in his early 60s. He wears a tunic of unbleached linen with a thin purple border. His hair is cut short in the Greek manner. A gold ring with a carved seal moves slowly between his fingers. He is the king of the Nabataeans. His name is Aretas IV. He has been on the throne for almost 40 years, and he will be on it for 10 more. His title, given to him by his own people on coins minted in this city, is Aretas Philopatris, Aretas who loves his people. No earlier Nabataean king had used the word. It will not be used again after him. The wall he is watching is the front of his own tomb. It is being cut from a single face of the cliff at the end of the sick. The facade will be just under 25 meters wide and almost 39 meters tall. 2 stories, Corinthian columns, a broken pediment with a small round temple in the gap, figures of Castor and Pollux between the lower columns, a figure of Isis in the center of the upper round temple, dancing women in the frieze, an urn at the very top, carved from the same solid sandstone as everything else. The urn is solid. There is nothing inside it. There is nothing meant to be inside it. The whole facade is being cut from the top down. By the time the workers reach the bottom, the king who ordered it will probably be in it. He knows this. It does not seem to disturb him. Petra is at the height of its prosperity. Aretas has embassies in Rome and Alexandria. He has made his peace with Augustus and with Tiberius. He has been patient. He has watched his people stop being herders and start being citizens. He turns the gold ring once more. The first light is now reaching the top of the facade. The urn glows for a moment, the color of a peach. 2,000 years from now, almost nothing of his city will be standing except this. A scribe is sitting in a small office near the center of Petra at the end of the afternoon. He is in his 30s. His tunic is gray from years of ink. In front of him on a low table is a sheet of fresh papyrus, weighted at the corners with 4 small stones. In his right hand, he holds a reed pen sharpened that morning. He is copying a notice in 2 columns. The left column is in Greek. The right column is in Nabataean. Both columns say the same thing, which is that the kingdom no longer exists. It is the spring of 106 in the Common Era. Through the doorway behind him, he can see the central avenue of the city. The avenue is being repaved. Slabs of pale stone are arriving by ox cart from a quarry to the east. 2 surveyors with bronze instruments are setting the line. They are speaking in Latin. The last Nabataean king was Rabel II. He died last year. He left no son. The Romans had been waiting. The Emperor Trajan in Rome has decided to absorb the kingdom into the empire without a war. There is no battle in Petra. There is only an arrival. A legion marches in along the road from the north. The garrison takes over the old palace district. The mint stops striking Nabataean coins and starts striking coins of the new province, which will be called Provincia Arabia Petraea. with Petra as its capital for the first 60 years. The scribe finishes the Greek column. He moves to the Nabataean column. He writes from right to left. He has been doing this since he was 12. Within 3 generations, the Nabataean script will be effectively dead. The language underneath it will have continued to evolve. It will eventually become the script that is now used to write Arabic from Morocco to Oman. But by then, the people who wrote it down first in this valley will be a memory. He sets the pen down. Outside, on the new avenue, the Roman surveyors are calling out measurements. The sound of their voices carries strangely in the dry air, as if they are speaking from very far away. Stop for a moment. 2 centuries are about to pass quickly, and they should not pass without a marker. The Nabataeans built a city of 20,000 people in a valley that on its own could not feed 100. They did it by understanding 2 things better than anyone around them. They understood water. They knew how to gather it, channel it, store it, make it last through 10 months without rain. And they understood caravans. They knew the routes, the prices, and how to make traders coming up from the south stop in their canyon and unload, even when there were other places to stop. The Romans took the city without taking the knowledge. They paved the avenue. They built an amphitheater. They installed a governor. But the channels, the aqueducts, the cisterns continued to be maintained by the same families who had maintained them under the kings. The trade routes started to shift. Caravans from Arabia began to stop further north at Bostra. Ships from India began unloading further south at Isla on the Red Sea. Petra, for the first time in its history, was no longer the place everyone had to pass through. It was still a working city. It would be a working city for 2 more centuries. And then, on a spring evening in the 4th century, the ground would shake. Watch the buildings that are still standing. A woman is grinding barley in the courtyard of a small house cut into the rock on the south side of the city. She is 40 years old. She has been grinding barley in this courtyard since she was 9. The grinding stone is round and worn in the middle, like a saucer. The motion of her right shoulder is the motion her mother made and her grandmother made before her. It is the year 210 in the Common Era. About 100 years have passed since the Romans arrived. She is not poor. The house has 3 rooms and a small terrace. Her husband trades in olive oil between Petra and Isla on the Red Sea, 4 days, south by camel. They have 1 daughter and 1 son. The son is learning Greek from a tutor who comes twice a week, because Greek is the language of business now, and Nabataean is the language of grandparents. She has noticed over the years that the city is quieter than the city her mother described to her. The avenue is no longer crowded by mid-morning. The caravans that come through are smaller, 8 or 12 camels instead of 40. The big warehouse near the old palace district, which her grandfather used to manage, has been empty for 15 years. A family from the countryside is living in part of it now. The provincial capital was moved to Bostra some years before she was born. Petra kept the honorific title of metropolis. The title meant nothing. The governor lived elsewhere now. She finishes the barley. She tips the flour into a clay jar. She rinses the stone with a cup of water. In the next room, her daughter is sweeping. The sound of the broom on the stone floor is steady, patient, unhurried. The city is smaller than it was. It is not falling apart. The aqueducts still bring water. The fountains still run. The cisterns are still full at the end of winter. There is even a small community of Christians now, meeting in a private house on the eastern slope. Although no one in this courtyard pays them much attention, she wipes her hands on her apron. She has never once in her 40 years been afraid of the ground beneath her. A man is standing in front of a small altar at the back of an old temple on the north side of the city. He is 68 years old. His robe is dark blue with a narrow silver border at the hem, frayed in 3 places. In his right hand he holds a small lamp of bronze, unlit. In his left hand he holds a flint and a piece of dry tinder. He has been standing this way for several minutes. He is the senior priest. He has served here for 41 years. His father served before him. He is one of the last men in Petra who still performs the old Nabataean rites, in a city that, by this year, has more Christians than worshippers of the old gods. It is the autumn of the year 350 in the Common Era. 12 years from now, an emperor in Constantinople named Julian will try briefly to restore the old religions of the empire. Julian will die in Persia 3 months before the ground in this valley shakes. The priest does not know any of this. He knows that 6 days ago, the woman who came every week to bring him bread and oil told him she had changed her allegiance. He knows that the boy who used to sweep the courtyard, the son of a tanner from the lower city, was sent last year to study with a teacher in Bostra. He knows that the city council, which is still responsible for maintaining the temple, has not paid him in 7 months. He looks at the flint in his hand. He does not light the lamp. He sets it down on the altar, still cold, and walks out. In the courtyard, the wind has picked up. It is coming down the canyon from the east. He pulls his robe closer at the shoulders. He does not know it yet, but he is the last priest of this temple. The building behind him will still be standing in 13 years. After that, it will not. He walks down the steps to the avenue. Below him, in the soft afternoon light, a boy is selling small clay cups full of pomegranate seeds to 2 travelers from the north. The boy is laughing. A man is walking slowly along the south wall of the canyon at midday, checking the channel where it has been patched with mortar. He is 36 years old. He is the grandson of a man who held this same position and the great-grandson of another. The channel above his head still carries water, but it is not the same channel his great-grandfather built. There are 19 patches in this single kilometer. 3 of them are leaking. It is the 4th century in the Common Era. The year is around 340. He has been doing this job with his father at first, then alone for 22 years. The original engineers cut the channels with a half-degree slope and a triangular base, slightly wider at the lip than at the bottom, so that the water always pressed against the rock instead of the cement. He has read about this in an old wax tablet his father kept. He has tried to teach himself the geometry. He has not entirely succeeded. The patches he makes work for 6 or 7 years. The patches his great-grandfather made worked for 2 centuries. The aqueducts underground are still sound. The cisterns are mostly intact. The 2 big channels in the canyon still flow. But there are 16 smaller branches that he has shut off because he could not repair them. Each one served a courtyard or a fountain. Each one means a family in the lower city now carries water from the main pool, the way people did before there was a city here. He turns a corner. There is a new leak. He kneels down and runs his hand along the lip of the channel. The stone is cool. The mortar is damp. He will fix this one again. He will fix it as well as he can. He does not know that in 23 years, no one will be checking this channel. The patches will hold for a season or 2 without him. After that, the water will find its own way down the canyon walls, slowly, the way water did when no one lived here. He stands up. He goes back to his bag for more mortar. A girl of 12 is standing on the flat roof of her family's house, hanging wet linen over a wooden rail to dry. She is holding 2 wooden pegs in her teeth. Behind her, the sun is going down across the western ridge. In front of her, the cliff of red tombs on the other side of the valley is changing color, slowly, from rose to amber to a deep, soft orange, the color of clay just out of the kiln. She does this every evening at this time. The colors change in a different way each night. She has noticed this for as long as she can remember. She does not have words for the variation. She does not need to. Below her, in the courtyard, her younger sister is feeding 2 goats from a wooden bowl. Inside the house, her mother is grinding lentils. Her father is sitting on the threshold, mending a leather sandal with an awl. The date in the calendar her people now use is the 19th of May in the year 363. The day was hot. The evening is warm. The wind has dropped, the way it usually drops at sunset in this season. She turns to face the cliff for a moment. The orange has deepened into a brownish red. The shadow of the western ridge is rising on the rock face like dark water rising in a basin. She watches the line of shadow climb. When it reaches the top of the highest tomb, she will go down to help her mother with supper. Behind her, in the courtyard, her sister laughs at something the goats have done. The shadow climbs. The line passes the lower windows of the tombs. It passes the second story. It moves up the columns. It reaches the broken pediment at the top. It reaches the urn. The girl turns to go down. She has eaten her last full meal. The girl is asleep on a thin mattress next to her sister. The night is warm. The door of the room is open to let air in. From outside, on the canyon walls, the call of a small owl, regular every few minutes. She is woken not by sound, but by absence. The owl has stopped. The dogs in the courtyard are silent. The wind is no longer moving the cloth over the window. She lies still. She is 12 years old. She has lived in this city all her life. She has never been afraid in this room. Then the floor moves. The first motion is gentle, almost a sway. The cup on the low table tips and rolls. A pot in the kitchen rings against the wall. Her sister makes a small sound, not awake. Then the room shakes. The wall on her right side, against the rock of the hillside, begins to grind against the wall on her left side, which is built of stones. The 2 walls do not move together. The corner between them opens. She can see the night sky through the corner. Dust falls from the ceiling. The lamp by the door goes out. Outside, the canyon makes a sound. It is not a roar. It is more like a deep breath, drawn slowly by something very large. It comes up from the ground. It passes through the stones of the house. It continues up the cliff. Across the valley, in the dark, the columns of the building she has been looking at every evening of her life begin to fall. An old temple on the north side, which had stood for 300 years, falls in less than 30 seconds. The great temple at the south end of the avenue falls. The roof of a small new building near the avenue falls with a single woman inside it who had stayed to fix a lamp. The amphitheater, cut into the rock, holds. The facade at the end of the canyon, cut from a single face of stone, the tomb of the king who had loved his people, holds. The urn at the top does not move. The girl's house holds. The girl does not move. Across the dark somewhere, a man is shouting a name. A bell in a courtyard begins to ring against itself. It rings for about a minute. Then it stops. The ground stops moving. The night is silent again, but it is a different silence. The owl does not return. In the morning, the girl will help her father carry stones out of the lower part of the house. They will find her younger sister alive. They will find the goats. They will find the body of the woman across the avenue. The city will not be a city anymore. It will take 3 more centuries for it to finish ending, but it will not be a city, not again. A man is sitting cross-legged on a low cushion in a side room of a new church on the north side of the valley. He is 44 years old. He is a notary. On his lap is a small wooden writing board with a sheet of papyrus stretched across it. To his right, a brass inkwell. In his right hand, a reed pen cut yesterday. He is recording a sale of a small vineyard between two families who live up the slope. It is around the year 540 in the Common Era. Almost 200 years have passed since the night the ground shook. The girl who was 12 that night is long dead. Her descendants live in this city still. The vineyard he is recording is theirs. The notary writes in Greek. He has never learned to write in Nabataean. He has never met anyone who could. The script of the men who built the canyon channels has been gone in this valley for at least 4 generations. He writes the date. He writes the names of the buyers. He writes the location of the vineyard, with its boundaries described by reference to neighboring properties, the field of Theodorus to the north, the dry channel to the south, the new road to the east. He writes the price. Across the courtyard, in the church, the notary works beside. A mosaic is being laid. The voice of the mosaicist calls out a measurement. A boy answers. The smell of fresh lime mortar drifts in through the open door. The notary finishes the document. He signs his name as witness. He rolls the papyrus and ties it with a leather cord. He puts it in a small wooden box with 31 others. In 150 years, that box will be in this same room when the room burns. The fire will char the papyri black, but not destroy them. The box will be buried under the collapsed roof. The roof will lie undisturbed for 1,300 years. In 1993, an archaeologist will lift the lid. The papyrus the notary has just signed will be inside. A pilgrim is standing on a stony ridge above the valley of Wadi Musa in the spring of 1217. He is German. His name is Theitmar. He is a monk traveling on foot from Acre, on the coast of the Levant, to a destination deep in the Sinai. He is wearing a brown traveler's habit. He is carrying a wooden walking staff and a small wax tablet on a cord around his neck. He has stopped because the path runs along the edge of a ridge, and from the ridge he can see down into the valley below. In the valley, on a hillside, are the ruined walls of a small fortress. The fortress was built about 100 years ago by a king named Baldwin, who held the city of Jerusalem. It was taken by the army of Saladin in 1188, when Theitmar was a child. It has been abandoned for almost 30 years. Theitmar takes out his stylus. He scratches a brief note on the wax, "Castles destroyed." He does not go down into the valley. He does not enter the canyon that opens to the east of the ruined fortress. He does not see the facade at the end of that canyon. He continues south along the ridge. This is the last European to be inside of Petra for almost 600 years. 8 years later, in 1225, an Arab geographer in Mosul named Yaqut al-Hamawi describes these fortresses in his great dictionary of places. He knows there are old ruins in the valley below. He says so. His book is read in Baghdad and Damascus and Cairo. It is not read in Paris. Half a century later, the Mamluk Sultan Baybars passes through these mountains, and his biographer mentions one of the old forts in passing with no curiosity. The valley itself remains inhabited. Shepherds graze their flocks among the tombs. Travelers pass within a day's walk of the canyon and do not enter. In Europe, no one knows the name Petra. The old books, Strabo, Pliny, Eusebius, still exist, but the city they describe has become a word without a place. Until a young Swiss in Cambridge picks up the books, sometime around 1807, and starts to read them. A young man is sitting at a long oak desk in the Trinity College Library in Cambridge in the autumn of 1808. The wood is cold against his forearms. The room smells of beeswax and old paper. In front of him is an open volume of the Geography of Strabo in Greek. He is 24 years old. His name is Johann Ludwig Burckhardt. He was born in Lausanne in November of 1784, the son of a Swiss silk merchant of Basel. He has studied at the universities of Leipzig and Göttingen. He has come to England 2 years ago looking for work. A letter of introduction has led him to Sir Joseph Banks, the president of the Royal Society, patron of the African Association. The association was founded 20 years earlier to find the city of Timbuktu and to map the course of the Niger River. Banks has offered him a position. The position is to go to Timbuktu by way of Cairo. Burckhardt accepts. He spends 3 years preparing. He learns Arabic with a private tutor in Cambridge. He reads the Quran from beginning to end, twice. He studies Islamic law. He learns medicine. He grows a beard. He walks long distances barefoot in the English sun, training his feet. He learns of a German explorer named Ulrich Jasper Seetzen, who tried to find a lost city in southern Jordan in 1809 and did not return. In the spring of 1809, Burckhardt sails for the Levant. He spends the next 3 years in Aleppo. He becomes Sheikh Ibrahim ibn Abdullah, Master Abraham, son of the servant of God, a scholar from India, a man of medium build with a brown beard and a quiet manner. The Arabic of the streets and the Arabic of the law are corrected in those 3 years by 5 different teachers. In the 3rd year, he can walk through the markets and the mosques of Aleppo, and no one stops him. He passes. In early 1812, he leaves Aleppo, traveling south. He passes through Damascus. He crosses the Jordan. In the town of Kerak, the local lord robs him. In a village called Shobak, south of Kerak, he recovers and buys a small goat. On the morning of the 22nd of August, 1812, he hires a guide in the village of Elgi. He tells the guide that he has made a vow to offer the goat at the tomb of Aaron, on a mountain at the far end of a hidden valley to the west. The guide knows the valley. He agrees. The payment is a pair of old horseshoes. The guide takes the goat. Burckhardt takes the water skin. They enter a canyon. The canyon narrows. The walls rise on either side, red sandstone layered in rose and amber. The light, at this hour, has begun to fall into the canyon along its length in a single long bar of gold. There are channels cut into the walls just above his head on both sides. He notices them. He does not stop. The canyon turns. In the gap, framed between the 2 walls of stone, he sees the upper part of a carved facade, painted by the light into something the color of fresh peach. A broken pediment, a small round temple in the gap of the pediment, an urn at the top. He walks forward. The rest of the facade comes into view, 1 column at a time. He has been preparing for 9 years. A man is lying on a low wooden bed in a small room in Cairo. The window is high on the wall, narrow, set with a wooden lattice. The light coming through the lattice falls in long, thin stripes across the white sheet covering him to his chest. It is the 2nd week of October in the year 1817. He is 32 years old. His skin is the color of unbleached paper. He has been ill for 11 days. The dysentery, which had taken him twice before in his travels, has come back a 3rd time. He has been awake for most of the morning. On a low stool beside the bed sits a tall man in a dark European coat, holding an open notebook and a steel pen. His name is Henry Salt. He is the British Consul General in Egypt. He is a friend. Salt has come this morning because Burckhardt asked him to. Burckhardt speaks in English. He has not spoken English in months. To the servants and the neighbors, he is still Sheikh Ibrahim ibn Abdullah. He will be buried under that name. in the Muslim cemetery of Bab el-Nasr before the end of the week. He speaks slowly. He asks Salt to write that his journals, Syria, Nubia, Arabia, the Bedouins, should go to the African Association in London. The association has paid for 9 years of his work. They should have it. Salt writes. Then Burckhardt asks for his books. He has been collecting them in markets and madrasas, in Aleppo and Damascus, in Mecca and Cairo for 9 years. There are about 300 of them. They are in Arabic. Some are unique copies. Let my whole library, Burckhardt says, go to the University of Cambridge, to the care of Dr. Clark. Salt writes that down. Edward Daniel Clark is the university librarian. He has been a friend of Burckhardt's since 1807. The library Burckhardt is sending him will become the foundation of a collection that, 2 centuries later, will still bear his name. Burckhardt does not know that his journals, when published in 1822, will introduce a forgotten city to the libraries of Europe. He does not know that 22 years from now, a Scottish painter named David Roberts will make Petra a part of every educated household in Britain. He does not know that 174 years from now, a king in Jordan will pin a posthumous decoration to a portrait of him. He knows only that he has dictated what he could dictate. Salt closes the notebook. Burckhardt does not see him close it. His eyes are on the strip of light moving slowly across the wall above the door. Petra was a working city for 1,000 years. It was built by an Arab tribe that had been moving with the seasons through the deserts of the peninsula for as long as anyone could remember, and that decided sometime in the 4th century before the Common Era to stop moving. They chose a valley with a perennial spring and a single defensible entrance. They cut their houses into the rock walls. They learned to capture every drop of rain that fell on the surrounding mountains. They became the brokers of the caravan trade between the south of Arabia and the ports of the Mediterranean. At their height, 20,000 people lived in their valley, and the city had embassies in Rome and Alexandria. The Romans annexed the city in 106 without a battle. The Byzantines continued to live there for 3 more centuries. A notary in a side room of a church recorded vineyards changing hands as late as the 6th century on papyri that would be buried under a burning roof and not read again for 1,300 years. On the evening of the 19th of May, in 363, the ground shook for less than a minute, and the standing buildings of the city fell. The facades cut from single faces of solid rock did not fall. The carved cliffs did not fall. But the temples and palaces and warehouses, the things that had been built up out of cut stones, came down. The city continued, smaller, until the 7th century. Then it continued, smaller still, as a community of farmers and shepherds living among ruins. And then, slowly, over the course of about 400 years, it disappeared from the libraries and the universities of Europe. The books that had described it, Strabo, Pliny, Eusebius, were still on the shelves. The name was still there. The place had become a word. The people who lived in the valley never forgot. The Arab geographers never forgot. The Mamluk sultans rode past the canyon and noted the old forts above it without curiosity. But to the educated world of the West, after about 1200, the city ceased to exist. It returned on a single morning in 1812 in the eyes of a young Swiss who had spent 9 years preparing to walk into a canyon in southern Jordan with a goat in his arms and a story about a vow. He did not stop to admire what he saw. He could not afford to. He took it in, walked through it, walked out, and continued on to Cairo. 5 years later, dying, he dictated where his books should go. He never knew his sentence had survived him. The urn at the top of the great facade at the end of the canyon, the urn the local people had believed for centuries to contain a treasure, the urn that travelers fired bullets at for 200 years in hopes of cracking it open and watching the gold fall. That urn is solid. It is sandstone. There is nothing inside it. There never was. But the facade behind it was the treasure. The hidden valley was the treasure. The Nabataeans who had cut their city out of the rock were the treasure. And the man who had walked through it in disguise, the man who had written it down, and the man who had taken his dictation were the thread that carried it across the silence. 3 million people now stand at the end of that canyon every year, watching the morning light fall on the rock the color of fresh peach. The carrier did not live to see it, but the carrying was done. In 1812, a Swiss explorer of 27, disguised as a Muslim and traveling toward Timbuktu for an entirely different reason, walked into a canyon in southern Jordan and saw Petra. He went home and died before his journals were published. In 1873, a German businessman of 51, dressed in a European suit and traveling deliberately in pursuit of a poem, dug into a hill on the coast of Anatolia and pulled gold out of the ground. He said the gold had belonged to King Priam. He photographed his Greek wife wearing it. His name was Heinrich Schliemann. He had made his fortune in the Crimean War and retired at 41. He spoke 15 languages. He believed, against the entire academic opinion of Europe, that the Iliad was memory and not invention. The professors despised him. The trenches he had cut had destroyed older layers. The claims were romance, not method. But the city was there, and no one could deny it anymore. The next video on this channel is about Heinrich Schliemann, the amateur businessman who saw what the professors had dismissed and who lived long enough to see the controversy. Unlike Burckhardt, who died before. Subscribe. The next civilization is being prepared. Every empire ends. The thread does not.